Cryptocurrencies are a crock. What social benefit do they provide? Well, they allow a few dozen men in my district to sit in their pajamas on the couch all day and tell their wives they're going to be millionaires. They help terrorists and criminals move money around the world. They help tax evaders. They help startup companies commit fraud, take the money, and 1% of the time they actually create a useful business. But then again, I dare say that some tiny percent of all larceny and crime helps finance something that turns out to be useful. It hurts the U.S. government in two ways. Our ability to have the dollar be the chief means of international finance is what has underpinned our ability to impose sanctions and stop tax cheating. And furthermore, when we have people take risk, we don't encourage gambling. We encourage investment in the real economy. But when you buy a Bitcoin, are you financing a new factory? No. You're gambling on its value for no social benefit. Now, I know that that these cryptocurrencies are popular. They're popular with guys who want to sit in their pajamas and tell their wives they're going to be millionaires. And they're popular with those who have read Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead and believe that these are the new canons, the new divinely inspired documents of our age. But they're harmful, and they're harmful in one other way, and that is, and I'm going to mispronounce the word, sinnerage, is the benefit that the U.S. government gets by issuing currency. It is the float. It is the fact that we do not pay interest on newly created dollars. We lose that as well. And the Fed is able to return well over $50 billion to our Treasury in many of the recent years. We undercut that. And then finally, we've got these initial coin offerings deliberately naming themselves to lie to the public and convey the image that it's like an initial public offering. They stole the intellectual property and trademark of legitimate investing and applied it to a fixed, fraudulent gambling scheme of no social benefit. Aside from that, I think it's a good idea. I yield back.
Thank you. A currency is both a store of value, one you hope appreciates, and a medium of exchange. So let's focus on the medium of exchange. Is there any reason why I would need a cryptocurrency to pay for my groceries or anything else? Why would I, that wouldn't be adequately served by using dollars? Yes, Mr. Van, yes.
Thank you, Congressman. No, not yourself, I believe, sir, because you and I are...
You're assuming I'm not a terrorist or a criminal, and I thank you for that
No,
assumption.
I'm assuming you're an American citizen, which I think is a pretty safe assumption.
That one's safe. The other two are questionable. Go ahead.
You and I have the benefit of a well-functioning and extremely important financial infrastructure that's around us every day, of credit cards, of bank accounts, and most Americans do find it not too difficult to become banked. We have an unbanked problem in this country, but it's not nearly as profound as other parts of the world. In other parts of the world...
Is there any part of the world where the unbanked couldn't just as easily have access to transactions in real currencies rather than cryptocurrencies?
So there are parts of the world where real currencies in those countries are being basically debased by their governments or hyperinflated, or they just don't have actual purchasing power because
right. So you could use dollars, euros, Swiss francs. Why are those not the adequate substitutes?
If you can find access to cash in your region of the world, US dollars, that might be a very good means of exchange, but those will trade at extreme premiums. My only point is that cryptocurrencies are accessible. They're accessible financial tools only on the basic precondition that someone has a smartphone and an internet connection. And I think there are regions of the world where people will sooner have smartphones and internet connections than they'll have access to valuable and secure financial services from companies.
I wonder if someone else can comment on that. I don't think in the tallest mountain of Tibet, there's somebody with a $100 bill that they're holding on to. And on every cell phone, there's a way to use dollars or euros. Does someone else have a comment?
Mr. Sherman, thank you for the questions. I want to divide your question into two different parts. One part relates to things like Bitcoin and other currencies, which is really what you're discussing. Second part is going to relate to tokens and similar types of things that have instruments that have specific purposes on specific platforms that people can earn and generate in ways that you could not do with cash.
What, I have limited time. Focus on what can't you do with cash?
Well, in a platform, for example, where we are, where we have a buyer of property, sellers, and then we have third parties who are performing important services to the platform to help the platform run, to help validate services, to help do other functions that are
And why can't these platforms use dollars?
because there's nobody who's going to pay them. What happens on these platforms is that the platform itself.
Wait a minute, I have a bank, I pay them one way or another?
No. You have to find a source. You have to find somebody who would be in the business of paying them, and that costs money. So what you see in these platforms, what you see in,
Sir, I've lived my whole life. I'm as old as almost anybody in the room.
oh, sir, that's very kind of you to say, but I'm not sure.
Various intermediaries have handled my financial transactions my entire life, and none of them have gone hungry.
We're talking about a very different business model, right? Then that's one of the things that's so important about this, and so important about this.
We know that this is a good method for terrorists, criminals, and tax evaders. So the question is there some great social purpose that cannot be met in any other way? I want to hear from a different witness, and I don't see one volunteering.
Honestly, I think it's an important question because you're getting ultimately to this question as to whether or not many of these cryptocurrencies, and I think the vast majority of the cryptocurrencies tied to ICOs, are really just means by which you're raising capital as opposed to currency. I will say,
Well, raising capital, but unregulated.
Oh,
doing an
absolutely.
IPO, but calling it an ICO.
well, one of the key responses I was trying to make for Mr. Rosenblum when discussing the adequate disclosures or the kinds of disclosures that one would like to see in a white paper is precisely in order to beef up those white papers so that they become more compliant with the expectations of our securities law, which I think is an expectation that all securities lawyers would enjoy. But I am very sympathetic to that.
But if I go buy an ICO and the company sells great pizza and eventually makes billions, I don't get any of that, right? I'm not a stockholder.
But sir, the important thing on those tokens is the company that creates the platform may not have any financial success on the platform. And the fact that the platform becomes very successful may not redound to the benefit of the entity that created the platform.
Okay. Well, perhaps we'll have another hearing after some major terrorist event financed by cryptocurrencies, and I yield back.